Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Bears Insider Podcast from Shaw Local. I am Shaw Local Chicago Bears beat reporter Michael Dwojak, joined here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar. We're recording this on Tuesday, an off day for the Bears. I know it's been a while since we talked to you folks, but we wanted to get caught up here a little bit. We have a lot to talk about. Thank you to everyone who is joining us on the live stream this morning. If you obviously didn't take a listen on the live stream, thank you for listening to the podcast. A lot to talk about here as we're kind of regrouping here a little bit. Joe, a lot of stuff has happened. But how are you doing? How are things going?
I'm good. It's football season go time, right? Even for high school football, all the high school sports started up on Monday, and we got our first look at the Bears, and can't wait until Monday night, 3 weeks away or a month away, whatever it is now, for that game to start it for real.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of at that point, right, where we're kind of like, all right, like when does the season start? Like, obviously, there's still a lot of stuff to work on for the team here in the preseason, but it's kind of like, well, I feel like you get your first dose of like football in that first preseason game, and then after like a quarter, you're just kind of like, okay, well, maybe we want the real thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on, a lot of interesting things to talk about, and we learned a lot from the Bears, both the joint practice against the Dolphins on Friday and also their preseason opener against the Dolphins on Sunday. The major storyline obviously was that Caleb Williams and a lot of the starters, a majority of the starters, didn't play in Sunday's game, preseason game number one. Now, Ben Johnson hasn't said anything about, looking ahead, whether, who's going to be playing in game two, are they going to do game three and that sort of stuff. But, Joe, what was your initial reaction when Ben announced on Friday that, they were mostly going to focus on those joint practices, that joint practice on Friday, and then a lot of the starters aren't going to play on Sunday?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. I think, like all Bears fans and all NFL fans, want to see Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson together. I know it's one preseason game, even if he would have played one series or two. I would have hoped he would have gotten two. I want to see it. And probably like a lot of young guys, whether it's high school or college or pro, you need reps, you need reps, you need reps. I don't know how much value you can put into a preseason game. Last year, the Bears were undefeated in the preseason. Then we know how the regular season wound up.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
was disappointed because I just I just want to see how it looks, even if it was just dumbed down vanilla plays for two series. But you want to see him again, like things we've talked about, Michael, since they started camp. Breaking the huddle, clean, no false starts, all that kind of stuff. Guys in the right place, and then see some of the many targets, top targets they have, get the football. We didn't see any of that. So, but it's again, we're in the same spot we were since they hired Ben Johnson. You have to trust in Ben Johnson that he knows what he's doing. He has a game plan, not only for each game as far as the X's and O's, but as far as just handling his personnel, including the quarterback.
Yeah, I guess, if you paid attention to what Ben Johnson, told us over the offseason and heading into training camp, this kind of probably isn't a surprise. Like, he emphasized the importance of those joint practices. Like, he said that he puts a lot into them.
Yeah.
Obviously, Dan Campbell in Detroit did the same thing. Jared Goff didn't play too much with the Lions during the preseason. So, I guess if you're looking back at the history, it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. I mean, it's very clear that Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles and the coaching staff are going to face a lot of emphasis into those joint practices that they're going to have with the Dolphins and the Bills. And I agree with you. I think it's kind of a cost effect thing, right? Where it's like, well, is it worth the risk of Caleb getting injured or a starter getting injured in this preseason game? And I can follow that logic a little bit, but I also think that there's a value, like Ben Johnson said, like it's different when you're going against live bullets, right? Like it's definitely different in game action, warming up, going through the pregame stuff, actually taking a snap and handing it off. Even if you did three straight runs to start the game and you just did that, I think there's something to going through that process, right? Just going through the
I agree.
process of getting the play call in from Ben Johnson, in a headset as opposed to the walkie-talkie. I think there's something to going up to the line of scrimmage, dealing with the crowd at Soldier Field. And I think there's a lot to that. And I don't think Caleb and the starters needed to play the first half, even the entire first quarter. I think there's just something to take from going out there, going through a routine, building up a routine. So when you do go out there from Monday Night Football against the Vikings to start the season, like, you're not going to be shocked because it's going to be an intense environment. Fans are going to be juiced on Monday Night Football. You're going against a division rival to start off the year. It's the Ben Johnson era. Fans are hyped for a new era of Bears football, and it's going to be loud in that building, even if it's not supposed to be loud on offense, right? So, we'll see where this thing goes, against the Bills and the Chiefs. But yeah, I don't think it's going to make or break your season. I don't think you're going to win or lose a game this year because you didn't play in the first preseason game. But I do think that there's something to take from that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I think hopefully we see him Sunday night at Soldier Field against Buffalo, because we won't find out until Friday. Like who's playing, not only Caleb but the other starters who sat,
Sure.
including Roma Dunze and those guys. But it was good to see Colston Loveland. I know he was. I don't know how many series he had or how many snaps he had, but caught a pass and he was out there, and it's always just fun to see Bears football right after a long layoff.
Yeah, it was encouraging. We'll just touch on the game a little bit here. We don't need to spend too much time on it, but Colston Loveland got in the drive. He started off there. He caught a pass for like 8 yards, and then his day was done. Luther Burden got involved there. Kyle Monungai rushed for 30 yards. I think it was 5 carries or 6 carries, and he was averaging 5 yards a carry. He looked as advertised, right? I don't think Kyle Monungai is going to impress you with his breakaway speed by any means, but I think he's going to fight for yards. He's going to pick up a lot of yardage, dive forward to pick up an extra yard, right? He's a tough runner, and you finally got a chance to kind of see that in live game action on Sunday, so that was encouraging. Obviously, Austin Booker stole the show. He had 3 sacks, got a strip sack in there as well. So impressive stuff from him. Noah Sewell looked good on that first drive. He had a forced fumble, and then he came up with a fourth down stop on at the goal line. So you got some good performances, right? And you saw some good things, and I think those are things that you're kind of encouraged by with the context of knowing what the game was on Sunday.
Yeah, Austin Booker is a guy. Remember last year in the preseason, he flashed and people were really excited. And then regular season came around. He really didn't get a lot of snaps, had 1.5 sacks and limited game action. But he's a guy, year 2, excuse me, you want to see him make a step. We don't want to see, like guys in the past for the Bears, D tackles, D ends have flashed in the preseason, then regular season comes around and they don't do much. But for Booker, a guy who, correct me if I'm wrong, they moved up right to get back into the 5th round and take him a year ago. And he looks the part, right? 6'6". He's huge. He's fast. High motor guy. But he should take a next step this year. So when we're still looking for that other pass rusher, and in a new system with Dennis Allen where they're going to be blitzing more, I'd like to see him take another step. Certainly that was encouraging. I know it was preseason and it was against Miami's backups or, their second string guys for the most part too. But I still I'm not a scout. I don't watch hours of film, but he certainly looks good on film. I look good on my TV on Sunday afternoon. Let's put it that way. And the numbers were there to support it. So I'd like to see him take a next step. Can he be that, that compliment to Montez Sweat that we were hoping for all last season and the offseason? We'll see what Odengbo does. But certainly that was encouraging. And I want to see more Austin Booker. Let's see if he can do it again.
Yeah, that's definitely last year, when they brought in Booker, they traded back for him in the 5th round. It was kind of viewed as a developmental piece guy, right?
Yep.
Like not someone who's going to make an impact right away. And he shined a little bit in the preseason last year, like you said, Joe. But kind of tailed off. Kind of got used to NFL schedule. Maybe he needed to put on some more weight.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a lanky guy, right? So
Yep.
he needed to put on some weight. He told us after Sunday's game that he did put on a little weight. Feels a little bit better. So that's definitely something to watch on, because listen, you want Montez Sweat and you want Dio Adingbo obviously to be your key pass rushers, right? But you're going to need reinforcements. They're going to be going in waves. The same thing with the interior of the defensive line. Dennis Allen likes to move Adingbo around too, so maybe sometimes you'll have a situation where you have Adingbo, Montez Sweat, and Austin Booker out there at the same
Yeah.
times, or you might, that's the thing about Dennis Allen. He's going to switch things up a lot on that defensive front. So it'll be interesting to watch how that kind of happens. But yeah, an encouraging sign from Odengbo, or not from Odengbo, for Booker to kind of start things off. And it'll be interesting to see if he's able to kind of continue that moving forward. But let's focus more on what the Bears were kind of more focused on, and that was Friday's joint practice against the Dolphins. First chance for the Bears to go against someone other than their own teammate, which players always love to do. And let's start with what kind of stole the show on Friday, and that was the defense. The defense just looked electric right from the start. That secondary looks really good, even without Jalen Johnson, without Kyler Gordon, who was not out there with an injury on Friday. Listen, Jaquan Brisker, he's just continuously around the ball at this point. He doesn't look hesitant at all after missing the last 12 games of last year. Kevin Byard looks really good out there. Terrell Smith, obviously fighting for some reps at the cornerback spot. He got some good hits out there. Nashawn Wright continues to have a really good camp. And you saw the pass rush kind of come alive there. Obviously, you're not going to hit the quarterback. You're not going after them in these joint practices, but listen, the Bears defense came out with an intensity that, Ben Johnson kind of challenged them before practice and said, listen, if you're going to prove something, like, this is the day to do it. Like, you want to show that you want to be part of this roster, you want a starting snaps. This is the day to do it against the Dolphins. And that's exactly what happened for that defense, where, man, they just look electric. They just look like a defense that, is going to be physical, is going to get after players, and is going to leave their mark. And, it's one joint practice. It's a couple weeks into the season. I understand that. I'm not here to proclaim that they're going to be a top 5 defense based on what we've seen 2 weeks in. But I think you have to be really encouraged about what this defense looks like, especially with how they ended the year last year.
I lost you there, Michael. We seem to have this connection like once a show where the audio keeps fluttering on me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you. Can you? I was just talking about the defense and how electric they've been, and how big of a response it's kind of been for them since after they kind of ended the year not on a good note last year.
Yeah, Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me? All right. Seems like Joe's dealing with.
I'll talk. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Seems like Joe's dealing with some internet issues. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, I think you're just seeing this defense, and I wrote about this on Friday, just how much the defense is matching the intensity of Ben Johnson, and I think you're seeing a lot of that with the way they play. They're really going after players, and I think it kind of caught the Dolphins off guard a little bit. I saw some, not that the reporters kind of reflect what the players are thinking, but even the reporters were kind of caught off guard with just how well that defense was able to just be physical. And there were no cheap shots. There was nothing outrageous or anything like that. But I just think that you're just seeing a defense that, Dennis Allen is a competitive guy. Ben Johnson is a competitive guy. You're seeing it from the players, especially defensively so far. Montez Sweat, has needed a good rebound camp after kind of a down year battling injuries. He looks good. Like, he looks like he's getting after guys. He's creating pressure. And he's just doing a lot of things that you want him to do as your top paid pass rusher. So, Joe, like I was kind of talking with the folks here, this defense is, I understand that it's early. I understand that it's a joint practice and you're going against the Bears offense, who's learning a completely new offense and maybe doesn't look like its best right now. But I think that this has to be a really promising start for a defense that really needs to rebound after a down end to last season.
Yeah, and we hear so often in this league that coaching really does matter in the National Football League. I just refuse. The Bears' talent last year, the year before that, was that horrible, like top 5 bad in the league. I just refuse it. I just think, they had I hate to criticize. There will come a point where we stop criticizing Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron and all those guys. But
Sure.
let's face it. I mean, it's been bad the last 2 years. Do I think the Bears could have been a playoff team last year, the year before? No, but I think they could have been better than what they were, clearly. So I think, and even though we don't want to read too much into the preseason game against Miami, were there any moments, Michael, where you thought, well, here we go again with this coaching staff? They don't know what they're doing. I didn't see any of that from offensively at the end of the first half where they squeezed out a field goal there. Just that time management, even at the end of the game. In a tie game, the Bears are looking to go ahead, or they didn't execute with Austin Reed. Okay, it's nothing to be concerned about. But they still had other timeouts. They look like a well-coached team, and defensively too. They look like they had packages when Miami was in third and long situations, and they were like game on the line moments in this preseason game. The Bears looked like the coaches knew what they were doing, and we talk about all the individual performances, especially on the defensive side of the ball with Booker and Sewell and guys like that, and offensively with Monangai and Bajent did pretty well actually in the first half. But to me, the biggest takeaway probably was the Bears look like they have competent coaches, and I do think of all things that does matter. And getting back to the scrimmage with the Dolphins, 2 days earlier. Same thing. I mean, at least, let's look. I mean, let's face it, football is an emotional game. It's like hockey. You have to bring it on every shift and every down, and it does have rewards. So I'd rather see the Bears being physical, even if it's always going to be borderline chippy, physical, clean. I mean that's the game. So it was good to see at least they had the intensity and they were fired up, and you have to be, because sometimes that makes a difference in football games. And so I was really encouraged with that. Instead of like, well, the Bears really laid an egg against the Dolphins on Friday in that scrimmage, and they looked uninspired. No, they look like they're ready to go. And again, we almost have to preface every sentence we say here, every paragraph with, it's only the preseason. But that said, I was encouraged.
Yeah, and I think a lot of Bears fans are going to be encouraged. And I think that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I think, as a reporter, maybe I've kind of gotten used to this at this point, obviously with the offseason practices and the training camp stuff. Like, I'm kind of used to that intensity and kind of whatever. Just that's kind of been the biggest thing that this coaching staff has brought in. But I do think fans are going to see that intensity in games and practices, right? Like, this is a coaching staff that has a lot of experience, even though Ben Johnson is a first-time head coach. Like, I'm glad that you brought up that end of half situation where clearly last year that was not a thing that was going to happen. There was a lot of scenarios last year where Matt Eberflus and that coaching staff just didn't put those situations. But you saw the Bears, took over the ball. They got a turnover on fourth down, and they took over with 6 seconds left. Tyson Bagent finds Luther Burden for a quick pass, and Luther Burden knows to go out of bounds as quick as possible, picks up 13 yards. You have a second left before the end of the half. And then, Cairo Santos ends up hitting a 56 or 57-yard field goal to get 3 points on the board, right? Like that did not happen last year. And I think that is something that you take from that preseason game where you're kind of like, all right, doesn't matter if the Bears win, lose, or tie against the Dolphins or any of these other preseason games. No, it doesn't matter. Or I guess it doesn't count, like Ben Johnson liked to say, but it does matter, where that is a situation where you did not see the Bears do that last year. And I think
agree.
That's what Bears fans are going to see this year, that it's just going to look better. And, what operational wise, is Caleb Williams going to throw 50-yard bombs against the Vikings? I'm not promising you that at all. It's going to take time for that stuff to kind of happen here under a new coaching staff and a new offense. But from right now, one game in, 2.5 weeks into training camp, things are so meticulous to the details, and fans are going to see that, and you're not going to see you're not going to see what happened against Detroit last year. You're not going to see what happened on the last minute Hail Mary where you give up 13 yards to set up that Hail Mary on the play before, and then Matt
Exactly.
Eberflus says it's not important. Like, you're going to see a
Yes.
detail-oriented coaching staff, and I think that's going to become, like, I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because that comes across pretty quickly, even in a preseason game like Sunday.
Yeah. And let's face it, of all, the most scrutinized individual on the Bears last year, besides the quarterback, was the coaching staff and Matt Eberflus. So you hope Caleb's going to be better. He'll be better. I mean, come on, he'll be better this year. I'm pretty confident of that. I'm not saying they're going to win 12 games, although I think I did predict them for 12 wins when we did our little mock 2 months ago. But I just think coaching will show up, and not only with Ben Johnson, with Dennis Allen, and the assistant coaches too. You've written about it a lot. We've talked about it a little bit about the assistant coach. I just think they've got competent guys coaching, and I am confident that will translate to victories.
Yeah, I think that matters, right? Like that a lot of those, the Bears were a 5-win team. They easily could have won 7 or 8 games if the coaching
Yeah.
was a little bit better. But
Yes.
sticking with we'll get back to that joint practice. Mr. Shorty asked, who was your game MVP? Thanks for joining us, Mr. Shorty. I think Austin Booker probably was your MVP, right? Just the way that he looked. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the podcast, in the live stream. He looked good. But getting back to that joint practice, like I said, the defense looked good. Offensively, I think you just kind of saw what you've been seeing for the past couple of weeks with Caleb Williams in the first team offense. There was good and bad, right? There was good. There were some impressive throws. He fit in a beautiful pass over to Olamide Zaccheaus, and he fit that in perfectly. He hit Tyson Bagent, hit Colston Loveland with a nice pass during 7-on-7s. But then in the red zone toward the end of practice, there are a couple penalties there, and there's a delay of game, and there's just I think the biggest thing the Bears have talked about with Caleb Williams' development so far has been the processing, right? That's, the pre-snap process of getting the call, going up to the line of scrimmage, telling everyone, seeing what the defense is giving him. That is what they're really honing in on right now. And I'll give you that it does look better than it did at the beginning of camp, but there's still a lot of mistakes. And even yesterday on Monday, a practice where none of the players who played on Sunday, or very few of them, practice on Monday. So it was just the starters essentially playing against the starters. And it kind of a loose practice. It wasn't padded by any means, but there is miscommunication, right? There is a delay of game. There were dropped balls. There were guys not running the right way or not communicating with Caleb Williams. And I think that, is that reason to, sound the alarms, 2.5 weeks in. I'm not going to go that crazy, but it's stuff that we're still seeing, right? It's still stuff that we're seeing. There's miscommunication. The installs are done. The Bears went through 12 practices of installs. So now they're working on honing in on what Caleb does well and, incorporating that more into its offense. So you would think that would look a little bit better here. Obviously, I'm not going to take a lot from Monday's practice. But I do think that if you're a Bears fan, if you're wondering how's Caleb Williams looking so far, a lot of the answer I give is he looks like a quarterback who's learning a completely new system and learning how to rework his fundamentals. There's good and there's bad. And I think you're just looking for that progress. And I'm really interested to see how that kind of looks this week as he prepares for the Bills.
Yeah. And he's also going up against Dennis Allen's defense, which we think is, the Bears is going to be better primarily because of him, not necessarily because of the offseason acquisitions like Odangbo and Grady Jarrett, those guys, and hopefully Billings is healthy and Jaquan Brisker is healthy. So I mean that's a good defense too. And I hate to go back to the '85 Bears. That's my first '85 Bears reference, but where the offense and defense got after each other so much, they just made each other better. I still look at the Caleb situation. Michael, there's so many weapons on this offense now, and we've already seen Luther Burden flash. We've seen Loveland flash. We've seen Adunze flash. We know what DJ Moore can do. I just think there's so many weapons on this team now that even if it's not the most perfectly executed play, if you can get the ball in the hands of those guys, good things are going to happen. Maybe
Yeah.
DJ Moore doesn't have to catch 7 passes a game, or it's like, oh, we have no one else to get the ball to. Now there's just so many guys, and there's so much potential for big plays with the receivers, including the tight ends that they have on this roster. I just don't see how this is going to be a bad offense. I mean, there are a lot of other teams in this league, if you look at the rosters, that have a lot less talent at the receiver position. So if Caleb just is good, he doesn't have to be great. I think if he's just okay to good, the numbers are going to look really good, and the points on the scoreboard will be there, because there's so many guys who can make a difference on. And sometimes, as you know, every coach will tell you right after a loss, well, it's just 1 or 2 plays that were the difference. Yes. And now they've got just more guys who can be that one difference in a game that can. I mean, so many of these games in the NFL, right? They're typically one or 2 possession games, and so now you have so many guys there. I've been burned a lot as a Bears fan. I've been a Bears fan a long, long time, but I am encouraged, and I'm almost pinching myself because I'm thinking, really, you're encouraged, Joe? I mean, you're used to being disappointed, but I am optimistic, not like on a scale of 10 to 10 out of 10. But more so than normal.
Yeah. Mr. Shorty brings up a good point too. Like, I'm actually impressed with how much the offensive players have digested. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to learn in this offense. This is not an easy offense by any means. No NFL offense is obviously easy. But listen, this is an intricate offense that is important with the details, and it takes time to learn this. It takes any player roughly a year or 2 to learn to be fully comfortable with an offense, right? So I'm not really surprised that we're not seeing it consistently, right? I think the biggest thing that right now, that if you're close to being any sort of concerned, is just the miscommunication and the false starts. I think that's the biggest thing right now, whether it's the false starts, the delay of games, the miscommunication. I think that's really something that really needs to stop if we really want to see progress here. But yeah, I would agree. It's a lot, and that's important context to kind of keep up with. We've got I'd probably say 10 or 15 minutes left on the podcast. We'll talk a little bit about what we were looking for with the Bills, but the left tackle competition, obviously that's the biggest competition for this team. Joe, you obviously got a chance to watch the game on Sunday. I truly wasn't impressed or daunted by either player, Braxton Jones or Ozzie Trapillo on Sunday. Obviously, a lot maybe was made a little bit about that final play Braxton Jones had, where I forget who was on the Dolphins, but the Dolphins edge rusher got past Braxton Jones and almost hit Tyson Bagent before Bagent found Maurice Alexander for a touchdown. Yep. Declan Doyle said on Monday that was just a snap count thing. But yeah, and talking with Declan on Monday, he said that there's some separation in the competition, but he said that the competition is wide open. And he also said that there's a lot to learn from Sunday. And it's very clear to me that neither player is making an impression, right? I don't think you watch Sunday's game. I don't think you watch Friday's practice. You even watch training camp and you're like, boom, Braxton is the guy. Boom, Ozzie is the guy. I think you're just kind of left with maybe they'll continue to impress us, and maybe there's more development to come. I mean, there's important context, right? Braxton Jones is coming back from an ankle injury. He's still developing. Like, obviously, he's only been back for a couple weeks now. Ozzie Trapillo is learning a newer position in the NFL, right? Like, there's important context here, but I just think that 2.5 weeks into this thing, I don't think we're closer to knowing who the starting left tackle is at this point.
Yeah, well, to me, it's really all about Braxton Jones' health. I mean, if he's healthy and he can get back to what he was before, you're okay there. I mean, he's not going to be an all-pro left tackle. He's not. I don't know how much better he can get at this point in his career. You just want him to be. You can be serviceable and play left tackle. That works. Just don't get your quarterback killed. I mean, there are a lot of guys who played a long time in the league and were serviceable to good players. I mean, Charles Leno played a long time here. I mean, I think he did go to one Pro Bowl as like the 10th alternate kind of thing one year, but he played a long time in the league. I'm actually surprised he's not on a roster yet, unless he's not healthy. But that's another story. But my point is, with Braxton Jones, you know what you have. So if he's healthy, again, I just don't like having a rookie. No offense to Ozzie Trapillo, start opening night. I just think that's a big ask, and let him be that swing guy for now, unless Braxton Jones isn't ready. So, look, Ozzie Trapillo, I know second round pick, but it wasn't like he was a top 5 pick in the draft. I mean, there wasn't like, it's not like this is Penei Sewell, who was a top 5 pick in the draft. Pretty certain. But then the expectations were there, and even sometimes those guys take a year, to get acclimated to the NFL and playing against men when they're, 21, 22 years old. So we'll see. Again, we got 3 weeks, did I say? Opening night. You got the Bills, the Chiefs, off week, your bye week, and then ready to tee it up for real. So you got some time here. Just be serviceable. You don't have to have an all pro at left tackle, as nice as it would be. But to me, it's keeping those interior guys, all of those guys, healthy. Tooney didn't play. Noah Jackson didn't play. Those guys are key. Drew Dahlman. To me, that's where it's really key. And we know what Darnell Wright is. Darnell Wright's a good football player. I'm really not concerned about him either. Is he going to be an all pro guy? Could be. Yeah, you hope he would be after they picked him 10th in the draft a couple of years ago. But you got to keep those interior guys healthy, and they got to be good. We know how good Tooney is. So left tackle, just don't mess it up. Right? Just don't get the quarterback killed. You don't have to be pancaking guys on every run play. Just be good enough.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you just want him to be serviceable, right? Like you don't. And I think that's the biggest. I think the biggest thing with this competition is obviously Braxton Jones has 1 year left on his contract, and are you going to pay a high salary for a guy who's average, right? So I think that's the biggest thing that the Bears are trying to figure out right now is what do we have in Braxton Jones, and is Ozzie Trapillo potentially the answer? And that could obviously look different at the beginning. That could look different at later in the year than what we kind of start things off. Maybe you start off with Braxton Jones and Ozzie gradually kind of gets better, gets his feet under him, and he learns what he kind of takes over the job. But, I think the biggest thing is like both Declan Doyle and Ben Johnson have said that they would like this to be done. They're not in a rush. They're not going to rush the decision, but they would like this to be done as quickly as possible because you need that cohesion, right?
Sure.
You need Joe Tooney to know who's going to be his left tackle consistently. And they're going. I think this is an important week where they're going to find things out. Declan Doyle, to quote him yesterday, he said, "The tape doesn't lie. It will become clearer and clearer as time goes on that one of those guys is going to separate themselves in the eyes of the decision makers, of Ben Johnson, of our front office, our own line coaches, myself. But incorporate evaluation. Thus far, we still have a lot of football left to play." So. Listen, I think, I feel bad for Karan. Obviously, he's been injured. He missed last week. He was back in limited fashion on Monday. I think at this point, it's a Braxton Jones, Ozzie Trapillo conversation just because of the injury that Karan kind of had to deal with. But this is an important week for them, and I think they're going to get a good chance to prove themselves. Whether I think for both Friday and Sunday against the Bills. I think it's an important test for them because eventually you do need to make the decision, and whether that's going to be Braxton, who kind of gives you some experience, or whether it's going to be you're just going with the rookie and you're going to live and die with the rookie. You're going to understand that he's going to make some mistakes here and there, but if you're willing to live with that, I think you are fine with that as long as you just come up with a decision here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they know which way they're trending. And they're not going to share that with the media and the public. Why would you? They'll make a decision when they probably feel like they have to make a decision. Like, okay, it's go time. It's close enough. We're naming Ozzie, or we've seen enough Braxton. We think the ankle is good and he can hold it down. And then you go forward. But again, injuries always happen. Are all 5 of those projected starters, whether it's Braxton Jones or Ozzie Trapillo at left tackle, are all 5 of those guys going to play 17 games?
No, there's no chance.
No.
It would be some. It would be. I'm not wishing injuries on anyone, obviously.
No, but it just happens. It's
this
reality
is the life
of the
NFL. It's the like You need Ben Johnson has said you need 7, 8, 9 offensive linemen to be ready to
Yeah.
play at any time because you never know when your number is going to be called,
Yep.
and that's exactly what you need. So, yeah, I would agree with you. Karan doesn't get the job, he can still be a very important swing tackle who needs to come in at
Yeah.
certain times.
Yeah.
Braxton Jones and Ozzie Trapillo, same thing. So I would agree with you. I think I think you got to make the decision, but you're not going to fully rely on one person. Rick chiming in. Good to see you, Rick. That's the reason Ben will not be afraid to start Ozzy is because he has Tooney next to him. That could play a factor in it. I don't fully disagree with that assessment. I think whoever you have in left tackle is going to benefit from Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman
Sure.
being in the interior, Jonah Jackson. I think that definitely benefits, and that could potentially be the reason why you put Braxton Jones in there. Maybe if you're Ben Johnson, you're like, I don't want to put a rookie in there for game one. I want to see what Braxton Jones can do when he's healthier and with a much improved interior line, right? Like, obviously, you're only as good as your teammates are at some point, especially the offensive line. So maybe that does just give Braxton Jones an opportunity to kind of be like, all right, Braxton, we got to see what you can do here. And if it doesn't look good, you go to the rookie, sometime during the bye week.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. We've got Wednesday, the Bears are going to be practicing against themselves. Same with Thursday. Friday is the joint practice against the Bills. And then they play the Bills on Sunday night at 7. I don't know who scheduled a Sunday night 7 o'clock preseason game, but whatever. But I think you took a lot from that practice against the Dolphins. Joe, I think Friday's practice is going to be huge on a lot of different things. You're going against a team that is not potentially, they're a Super Bowl contender.
Sure.
And I think both teams are going to treat Friday's practice, I would assume, as a really good moment to kind of see where you are at this point. I think the Bears have a big test to see where they are against the Super Bowl contender. Are they going to be able to pressure Josh Allen? Are they going to be able to stop that offense? I'm really excited to watch this defense go against that Bills offense. And for the offense, obviously, is that offense making progress? I know that the Bills defense probably isn't as good as it's been in the last couple of years, but it's not anything bad by any means. So what does Caleb Williams look like? Is he able to do well in 7-on-7s? What does the 11-on-11 look like? How does Braxton Jones or Jazzy Trapil look against this, defensive front from the Bills? I think Friday is going to be huge. And I think you take a lot from that practice on Friday in evaluating what this Bears team is a couple weeks before the season starts.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll look at that as a challenge too. Like you said, this is one of the top teams in the entire league, so there's an opportunity there to ratchet up the intensity because that's what's good. You're going to need that for all 17 games. So another opportunity there, and to me again, just stay healthy. I mean, let's not do stupid things. I mean, and we know injuries happen on non-contact plays too, but come out of it healthy and come out of it bringing the same intensity as you did against Miami last Friday, and that'll be good. You don't want to see him get riddled. But it is important for Caleb too. You're right, because you need these kind of reps, and you need to execute and to get a little as we get closer to week one here. So it'll be fun, and it's probably going to be more entertaining than the game Sunday night, the actual game Sunday night.
I would agree. I think these joint practices are that's just the way of the NFL at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of these coaching staffs, they can control the elements. Their quarterback doesn't get hit. They can work on a lot of different things. They can agree with the opposing coaches on what they're going to do. I think they take a lot from these, and I think you took a lot from Miami, and I think you're going to take a lot from this Buffalo Bills one. And I agree. With Caleb, I think I'm looking at what does the process look like, and is he able? One of the bigger things Declan Doyle talked about on Monday is a big step in Caleb's development is going to be how does he process what opposing defenses are doing. He got used to Dennis Allen's defense, right? So he maybe could tell, oh, I know this one. I know that I need to go this way. For the first time against Miami, he went against a defense that throws a lot of different fronts at you. So he's going to get the same thing with the Bills, where Is he seeing what the defense is putting out there, and is he making the smart play? Is he hitting the wide receiver open here in the end zone, or when he's making his move, or is he settling and scrambling like he has done in the past? So I think that's honestly the biggest thing that I'm looking for on Friday and even maybe Sunday. How is Caleb processing what he's seeing, and is he processing the right way, or is he making mistakes and still scrambling like he has, for most of his career?
Yeah, it would just be nice to see some like easy throws, easy 10-yard gains. We see it every Sunday in the National Football League. And guys who are backup quarterbacks, guys who are not big name receivers, and it's 1st and 10, and there's a guy wide open on a seam route, and it's a 17-yard pickup. It's like, why don't the Bears have these easy, like these? And not every play is easy, but gosh, the Bears. It seemed like they're last in the league everywhere. Every pass has got to be thrown precisely, where it's supposed to go. Every guy's got to run the perfect route. Like it shouldn't have to be that hard. Didn't look that hard for the Lions last year with Jared Goff. I mean, he's a good quarterback, but he's not Dan Marino in his prime. But there are a lot of easy throws. Can they just get enough of these easy throws so Caleb doesn't have to be Dan Marino on every single time he drops back to pass. So I hope there are enough of those plays. And then when there are the tight ones, then that's why he's the first pick in the draft. You hope that he makes throws. So we know he can make those crazy throws, great throws downfield over the middle. But can he? Every play it shouldn't have to be where he's got to recognize what the defense is doing and what the coverage is and then make the perfect throw. Like it shouldn't be that stressful, because when I see NFL games on Sunday, I see other teams. Not every throw Patrick Mahomes makes is like a Hall of Fame caliber throw.
Sure.
He's got some easy throws, and again, with the weapons they have, you'd think guys are getting more open. I mean, a lot of games when I covered the Bears in the past, sometimes like I was covering when Mitch was the quarterback, and like kind of pre-COVID, right before COVID, so that was Mitch. But you'd look downfield, like no one's open. So Mitch got the criticism, deserved a lot of it, but a lot of times guys weren't open. With this group of receivers, I got to believe guys are going to be open. I mean, we've mentioned the names so many times. Guys will be open. And you're not going to have to you shouldn't have to be having to make the perfect throw every single time.
All right, Joe, before we say goodbye, I want to get your opinion. Does Caleb and the starters, do you want to see them play on Sunday? How much do you want to see them play? Like, regardless, like if I told you that Friday's joint practice was perfect, you saw exactly what you needed from the defense, you saw exactly what you needed from the offense, Caleb had a great day. Do you still want to see this team practice on or, play at least a little bit on Sunday? Or are you comfortable with, okay, Friday was good, I don't really need to see it on Sunday too?
No, I'd want to see it Sunday. And not just one series. I mean, again, you only have one more tune-up after this one. So, no, I'd like to see at least a quarter because I think it's a game. I mean, right? You put the uniform on it, like you said, Michael. It's different from just having the practice jersey on and running a few plays. I want to see it. I want to see the starters, including the receivers, for at least a quarter.
Yeah, I would like to see them play regardless of what happens on Friday.
Yeah.
Obviously, injuries or something like that, like don't play them. Obviously, that goes without saying. Like you're not trying to prolong any injuries, but I would like to see them play. I don't have a specific number in mind. Maybe more than a drive just to kind of get into the groove of things. If you play a whole quarter, cool. If you play a whole first half, great, cool. I don't have a specific snap count that I'm looking for because I know that you can get a lot more in Friday's practice than in a game on Sunday. But I do agree you want to go through the process of getting ready, getting live action, going through the process of getting Ben calling the offense in your head, in your helmet, and I think all that matters. Rick says starters have to play. Mr. Says that what Rick said. Rick is going as far as saying I'll be livid if the starters don't play. I think that's fair, right? I think you want to see them play and you want to see them go through the motions. And I think the biggest thing is you don't want to go out there on Monday night against the Vikings to start the year, and there are issues. Caleb isn't used to this, or they were kind of surprised by this. Like I think you obviously want to prepare this team as much as possible, and I think Ben Johnson has shown that he's going to do that. He values the details. He values how important everything is to making this whole operation work. So I I wouldn't be surprised he plays on Sunday, goes through the motions, gets a drive or two in. Things look good, things look bad. Ho hum. I'm not going to take too much from it, but I think you go through the process, and he's going to go out there and play a little bit, and life goes on, and we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah. Get a first down on the first drive, please. Get a first down. You mentioned it too, and we all saw it, and you wrote about it. I mean, first two drives with Bajent against Miami look like the 24 Bears, look like the 23 Bears. Does that matter? In a way, I do, Michael, because they had to be the worst team in the NFL last year in the first quarter offensively. Right?
It was stunk.
It was 3 and out, and before you know it, you're down 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. So, and this fan base, I'm telling you, Monday night with the Vikings, it's not going to be, let's be patient. It's the first year. And, by week 5, they'll start showing signs of improvement. They go 3 and out opening night. You've seen it. I've seen it. Everyone watching has seen it. The Boo Birds, they're going to start coming out early. This is an impatient fan base. We got all the weapons. We got the coach everybody wanted. We got the number 1 overall pick from the year before. It's got to start happening. And I know it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, all that. But they've got to start making it happen. And, again, you got Minnesota. You got Detroit. They're not going to be favored in either game. You start 0-2. Can you imagine what the city's going to be like?
And that Brian Flores isn't going to.
The sun is exploding again all of a sudden. It's going to be this, oh my gosh, here we go again. Get a first down and then go from there.
Yeah, and that Brian Flores isn't going to take it easy on Ben Johnson in week 1. He's gonna go after him pretty quickly. That's the Vikings, obviously, defensive coordinator. But we will get into more week 1 breakdown, obviously, once we're a little bit closer to the season. But that's everything that we got for this week's episode live stream. Thanks so much to everyone who joined us. If you joined us on the live stream, thank you for all your comments. It was great to hear for you folks and see you guys chime in. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you as always for listening to the podcast. If you want to join us in our live stream, just look at our social media. We try to post at least 24 hours before we're going to do a live stream. It's a little bit hard with the training camp schedule. Fluctuates here and there, but Joe and I will try to do at least 1, if not 2 podcasts per week, just during training camp as we kind of get you ready for the regular season. So make sure you are checking us out and checking out our social media when we're going to be doing our next podcast before we do our regular, Monday, Friday routine during the regular season. So make sure you check out all of Joe Aguilar's work over at the Northwest Herald. Like Joe mentioned earlier in the stream, football season, high school football season is back, and he's got you covered. Make sure you're checking out all his work there. And as always, make sure you're checking out all of my work with Bears Insider. We've got you covered every day of training camp, games, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you are checking out all our work there. So thanks so much for joining us this week, folks, and we will talk to you folks down the road.